We walked across the same stage that day, same gowns, same smiles for the camera. But behind mine, there was something colder. My parents had paid every cent of my sister's tuition while I'd worked nights just to keep up. When I once asked why, my mother said she deserved it, but you didn't. I never forgot those words. They came to our graduation anyway, sitting in the front row like proud parents. But when the dean called my name and the crowd began to cheer, their faces turned pale. That moment didn't come from luck, it came from years of silence. From the outside, we looked like the kind of family people envied, matching Christmas sweaters, neat smiles in every photo, a two-story house with white shutters and a perfect lawn. But if you looked closely, you'd see it. The way my mother's hand lingered on Hannah's shoulder in pictures, but never on mine. The way my father's eyes softened only when she spoke. We were twins, born 4 minutes apart. 4 minutes. Yet somehow, those minutes turned into miles. When I fell and scraped my knee as a kid, Mom pressed a napkin into my hand and said, "You're strong, Camilla. You'll be fine." When Hannah so much as sniffled, she dropped everything, cooing, "Oh, my poor baby." It didn't stop as we got older. On birthdays, Hannah got a new bike. I got her old one spray-painted silver like a cover-up. When she forgot her homework, Mom wrote a note to excuse her. When I forgot mine, I got a lecture about responsibility. Little things. Tiny cuts that added up until I learned not to expect a bandage. By high school, I'd stopped competing. I studied, quietly worked part-time at a cafe, and saved every dollar. Hannah spent weekends at malls holding up dresses she knew I couldn't afford, smiling like it wasn't cruel. I kept telling myself it didn't matter, that being self-sufficient was a kind of pride. Then came senior year. Both of us applied to the same college, same major, accounting. The day the acceptance letters arrived, we screamed together in the kitchen. For a second, it almost felt equal again. Then I overheard my parents that night. I was coming down the stairs when I heard Mom say, "We'll pay Hannah's tuition in full. Camilla's clever, she'll figure something out. She always does." My stomach dropped. I remember gripping the railing, my hand shaking, listening as Dad agreed. "She's independent. She doesn't need as much help." Those words were supposed to sound like a compliment, but they landed like a sentence. I didn't confront them. What could I even say? That I was tired of being the strong one, that I wanted to be taken care of just once. Instead, I packed my bags quietly that August and promised myself one thing: I would never ask them for money. College split our lives in two. Hannah got a bright dorm room on campus. I rented a small space off campus, the kind where you can hear pipes groan when the heat turns on. She called home to ask for money for books. I picked up extra shifts at the library to afford mine. On weekends, she went to parties. I went to work. Sometimes I'd pass her on campus laughing with friends, sunlight hitting her hair just right. She'd wave, say, "You look tired, Cam. Maybe you should manage your time better." I'd smile back and keep walking, pretending her words didn't sting. What she didn't know was that every hour I worked, every sacrifice I made, was slowly building towards something neither of them could see coming. College didn't change the pattern, it only magnified it. Hannah moved through campus like she owned the place, always surrounded by people, always laughing. She joined a sorority, bought new clothes, and talked about weekend getaways. Her money came from home weekly deposits my parents called support. My support came from the night shift at the library. I shelved books until midnight, my hands cracked from cleaning chemicals, my eyes burning from studying afterward. When other students slept, I typed papers under fluorescent lights that hummed too loud. Every morning, I passed Hannah's dorm on my way to work. Her window was often lit, music drifting out, the sound of girls singing along to songs about freedom. I wondered if she ever thought about me down the street, counting every dollar. We saw each other sometimes at the dining hall. She'd sit across from me, a little too polished, a little too comfortable. "You look exhausted," she said once, tilting her head. "You should manage your time better instead of running around everywhere." She meant well, or at least she thought she did. I just smiled. "Maybe you're right," I said, and finished my coffee in silence. The breaking point came a few months later. Tuition deadlines loomed, and I was short on payments. I called home not to ask for money, but to check if there was anything they could help with, even a loan I'd pay back. My mother answered. I could hear the TV in the background, the sound of laughter. "Mom!" I began carefully. I was wondering if maybe you and Dad could help me cover part of the tuition this semester. Just a bit. I'll pay it back." There was a pause long enough to make my throat tighten. Then her voice calm and firm. "Camila, we already paid for Hannah. She deserved it. But you didn't." For a moment, everything went silent, the TV. My thoughts, even my heartbeat. I stood there, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles whitened. "I didn't deserve it," I repeated more to myself than to her. "You're strong," she continued like she was explaining something obvious. "You'll figure it out. You always do." And then the line went dead. I stared at my reflection in the dorm window. The girl looking back wasn't crying. Her eyes were dry, but something behind them shifted like a door closing quietly. I thought of all the nights I'd stayed up working, of the childhood moments I'd swallowed whole, of how easily they'd erased me from their sense of pride. That sentence didn't break me, it built me. That night, I walked to the library early. I organized the shelves, wiped the tables, and made a silent promise. If they believed I didn't deserve their help, fine. I'd prove that I didn't need it. I'd make them remember my name in a way they couldn't ignore. By the time dawn broke and the first students trickled in, I'd already mapped out everything: scholarships, internships, any door I could knock on. I was done waiting for approval. I was going to earn something they could never take credit for. I started showing up before sunrise when the library was still locked and the world was quiet enough to think. That quiet became my ally. I'd read financial analysis textbooks by the dim glow of my phone flashlight, memorizing charts and formulas until they started to feel like second nature. Exhaustion stopped being an obstacle. It became a kind of rhythm. Around that time, I met Professor McLaughlin. He taught International Financial Reporting Standards, a class half the students dropped because it was too dry. I stayed. One afternoon after class, he stopped me in the hallway. "You seem to understand this stuff," he said. "Where'd you study before Nowhere Special?" I told him. "I just read a lot." He smiled. "That's rare. I'm looking for an assistant, someone organized, dependable." Interested, I almost said no. I already worked nights, barely slept. But something inside me whispered yes. Maybe because for the first time someone saw me without comparing me to Hannah. Working for him changed everything. He treated me like a colleague, not a kid. I helped grade quizzes, built spreadsheets, even corrected a few of his slides. He noticed. "You've got discipline," he said once. "Keep going. It'll pay off." I didn't realize how literal that would be until the email arrived. Subject: Benjamin Ford National Scholarship. I opened it, half expecting spam. But the sender was official, the seal shining in the corner. The message read, "We invite you to formally apply. Your professor's preliminary nomination impressed our committee." My heart stopped. Professor McLaughlin must have sent my work himself without telling me, just to give me a shot. For a second, I just stared at the screen, trembling. Then I laughed. It wasn't the loud kind. It was quiet, shaky, almost disbelieving. After all the years of being invisible, someone had seen me enough to bet on me. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't even tell Hannah. I'd learned that my good news was safest kept in silence. Every evening after work, I drafted essays, refined resumes, and begged the printer to cooperate as I prepared submission packets. McLaughlin reviewed every line, pointing out where I could sharpen my arguments. Some nights, the stress hit hard. I'd think about Mom's voice. "She deserved it." "You didn't." It would echo in my head until it became fuel. When the results came 3 months later, I didn't scream. I just sat on my dorm bed, the letter trembling in my hands. "Congratulations, you are one of 5 national recipients." I whispered it out loud. Once. Twice. Then I exhaled, slow and steady. I'd done it. No loans, no handouts, no shortcuts. Later that evening, I called home, not out of spite, but habit. "Mom," I said, "I got selected for a national scholarship. It's kind of a big deal." Her response was a lukewarm, "That's good, dear. Hannah just got invited to her professor's garden party, so she's excited too." I bit my lip and nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Yeah, we're both doing great then." When the call ended, I realized something had changed. I didn't feel small anymore. I wasn't angry either, just finished. I'd reached the point where their validation no longer mattered. I hung the letter on my wall right above my desk, not to gloat, to remind myself what silence can build. The award ceremony was 2 weeks away. They'd asked winners to bring their families to celebrate together. I hesitated, but then I thought, why not? Maybe it was time they finally saw what not deserving looked like. The ceremony took place on a Friday morning in early May, the kind of day that feels borrowed from spring, bright sky, soft breeze, everything pretending to be perfect. I arrived early, clutching the invitation so tight the edges bent. The hall was enormous, draped in blue and gold banners, the air filled with the low hum of conversation. I found my seat among the other recipients, all of us wearing nervous smiles and polished shoes that pinched just a little. When the doors opened for the guests, I saw them. My parents walked in first, my mother's pearl earrings glinting under the light, my father straight-backed but hesitant, scanning the crowd as if searching for a familiar world to cling to. And beside them, Hannah, perfect hair, perfect dress, holding a camera like she was about to capture someone else's triumph. I hadn't told them what kind of award this was. I just said it was a little thing at the university. Part of me wanted to see how they'd react when they realized. Part of me still hoped for something impossible, a flash of pride, maybe. We exchanged small waves across the room. Mom mouthed, "You look nice." I smiled politely, then turned away. The ceremony began. One by one, students' names were called, each accompanied by applause and polite nods. The dean spoke of excellence and dedication words that floated through the air like confetti, beautiful but empty. My heart beat so hard it felt like a drum in my throat. When the announcer reached my name, I almost didn't hear it. The next recipient, the host said, is an example of resilience, discipline, and independence. Without financial support from her family, she worked nights as a librarian and cleaner to pay for her education. Her professors describe her as a force of quiet determination. Please welcome Camilla Moore. The hall erupted in applause. For a second, I couldn't move. The words, without financial support from her family, echoed through the speakers, slicing through the room like glass. My mother's smile froze. My father blinked, confused. Hannah's mouth parted slightly, camera still raised, but forgotten. I stood and walked toward the stage, my heels clicking like punctuation marks in the silence that followed the applause. Every step felt like reclaiming something that had been taken long ago. The dean shook my hand. "Congratulations, Ms. Moore," he said. "You've earned this." I know I replied softly, and the cameras flashed. From the stage, I could see everything, the stunned faces, the shifting posture, the faint flush creeping up my mother's neck. She looked like someone realizing the story she'd told herself for years was no longer true. When the ceremony ended, people swarmed around me. Professors, strangers, recruiters, all offering congratulations and business cards. I smiled, shook hands, thanked them. In the corner of my vision, I saw my family waiting. I took my time walking over. Mom was the first to speak. "Camilla, honey." "We had no idea it was this big." Her voice was high, brittle. "I know," I said. "You wouldn't have come otherwise." Her smile faltered. "Don't say that. It's true, though. I wasn't angry, just tired. You told me once Hannah deserved your help, and I didn't. I guess that was the best thing you ever did for me." Dad cleared his throat, eyes darting away. "We just thought you were so capable. We didn't want to hold you back." "By ignoring me?" I asked. "By pretending that strength means I don't need love." He didn't answer. Hannah shifted awkwardly, clutching her purse. Finally, she said, "Camilla, I didn't know. I thought you got help too." I met her eyes. "You never wondered why I worked 2 jobs while you were at parties." She looked down, whispering I didn't want to see it. There it was, the truth none of them had dared say. I took a breath. "You don't have to apologize. I don't need that anymore. I just wanted you to know. I made it. Without you." My mother reached out as if to touch my arm, but I stepped back. The distance wasn't cruel, it was necessary. A few minutes later, one of the event organizers approached me. "Ms. Moore, some representatives from Ford and Levine Accounting would like to meet you. They're at that table by the window." I smiled. Of course. As I turned to leave, I glanced at my family one last time. They stood there, silent, small, in a room full of applause meant for me. For years, I had been the shadow beside their light. Now, they were the ones squinting into mine. At the recruiter's table, the conversation flowed easily. They offered me a starting position in their New York office, talking about benefits mentorship possibilities. I nodded, listening, pretending not to notice the reflection of my parents in the glass wall behind them, still frozen, unsure whether to approach or retreat. Later, during the reception, I stepped outside for air. The sun was setting, casting gold over the courtyard. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "We're proud of you. Let's talk later. Okay?" I typed deleted, then finally sent. "Thank you. I'm busy right now." Inside, laughter and music swelled. I looked back through the window. My family was gone. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel their absence as a loss. It felt like space room to breathe. I walked down the steps and into the quiet evening, the award still clutched in my hand. The medal was cool against my palm grounding. They had told me I didn't deserve it. Now they knew exactly how wrong they'd been. That night, I didn't go back to the family hotel. I walked the city until my heels hurt the award box heavy in my hand. When I finally reached my dorm, I set it on the desk beside the scholarship letter and stared at both until the room blurred. For the first time in years, I wasn't chasing anything. I'd already arrived. The next morning, an email waited in my inbox, offered Junior Auditor Ford and Levine, New York. I laughed out loud, half in disbelief. The company that had sponsored the scholarship wanted me on their team. I clicked accept without hesitation. Later that day, my phone buzzed. "Mom again. Come home this weekend. We'll celebrate properly." I typed for a long time, then deleted everything except one sentence. "Maybe another time. I've got packing to do." Outside, students were taking graduation photos with their families, shouting, hugging, crying. I watched from my window, calm. I'd always imagined this day would feel lonely, but it didn't. It felt like freedom measured in quiet breaths. Before leaving for New York, I mailed one envelope. Home inside was a copy of my award letter and nothing else. No note, no signature. Just proof. When the train pulled out the city shrinking behind me, I thought about all the times I'd begged for their approval, how it had kept me small. Now, every mile between us felt like oxygen. I wasn't running from them anymore. I was running toward myself. The first night in New York, I stood on the balcony of my tiny apartment, city lights, flickering like 1,000 quiet affirmations. Down below, taxis moved in steady lines, each one a reminder that motion meant life. I thought about my mother's voice. "She deserved it, but you didn't," and smiled. Maybe she was right. I hadn't deserved it. I'd earned it. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's walking away and never looking back. If you've ever had to prove your worth to the people who were supposed to see it, first share your story below, and don't forget to subscribe for more.